want to tell you about an afternoon that I had a few years ago that ended one version of my career and started another. There was a client. It's always about a client, right? I've been working with him for years, and he ran a successful trades business, the kind that I had built my whole practice around helping. By any conventional measure, the engagement was a win. Revenue was up. Margins were healthy. The team had grown. We had hit every metric I knew how to set, and we had hit most of them on time. If you had asked me that morning what good consulting looked like, I would have pointed directly at him. He came in for what was supposed to be just a regular session. So we sat down, I had my notes ready. I was going to walk him through the next phase of the operational work because it's what I did. That's what he paid me for. And that's what I had been producing to create results for him. He didn't even let me get started. He said he needed to tell me something. Now, I wish that I could say that I've never had those moments before. You know, that moment where your radar goes off and I got ready to start my re-engagement process to get him keep working with me. I was listing all the things that we had done well and why he shouldn't leave. And then he said that he'd been thinking about selling the business. It wasn't because he wanted to retire. It wasn't because he had gotten an amazing offer. It was because he could not stand walking into the building anymore. Now, I've been doing this work for almost 30 years, and I have heard a lot of things from a lot of different owners. Now, that one stopped me cold because there was no version of the surface metrics that explained cleanly what he was saying. The business was working. He had built exactly what he had hired me to help him build, and he hated it. Now, I sat with that for a really long time after he left, and I tried to talk myself out of what I was seeing. I tried to frame it as his problem rather than my problem. I told him that I told myself that he had personal issues that had nothing to do with the work. I told myself that other clients were super happy with the exact same model. I told myself a lot of things over the next several weeks because what I was actually starting to see was something that I didn't want to see. I was starting to see that I had been solving the wrong problem the whole time. I had been treating his business like an engineering challenge. Optimize this piece, systemize that, improve the metric over here, build the org chart, tighten the operations. None of those are bad things. All of them are useful. And all of it pointed at the wrong thing. Because while I was building him a more efficient machine, the human being who owned the machine was slowly being crushed by the very structure that I was helping him build. And when the structure was finally efficient enough that he could see what it was doing to him, he wanted out. That was the moment that I understood something that I had been refusing to look at for too long. Leadership is not a content problem. Leadership is a context problem. I had built my entire practice on the content theory. Give the leader better information, better systems, better frameworks, better tools for them to use. Train them harder. Hold them accountable. These were the tenets. This is what I did. The leader would absorb the content and become a different leader. That's what I'd been selling all along. That is what almost everyone in my industry has been selling for as long as I've been in it. It doesn't work. It doesn't work because people do not change by absorbing more content. People change when the conditions around them change. Train the leader in a broken system and you have a slightly better trained version of the same leader inside the same broken system. The system is going to pull them back. It always does. Now, I've got to say something here that's pretty uncomfortable for me to say. I was not just observing this failure from a distance. I was part of producing it. For most of my career, I'd been selling the same broken theory of leadership development as everyone else around me. I'd been building beautiful machines for owners who were slowly being destroyed by the act of running them. I've been hitting metrics that looked like success while ignoring the actual human in the chair across from me. I wasn't doing it cynically. I genuinely believed that I was helping. And most of the time, people in my industry genuinely believe they're helping. The problem is not that we're bad people. The problem is that the structural design of the industry rewards selling the wrong things. And most of us we've organized our practices around what sells rather than what actually changes a leader's life. Now, once I saw that, I could not unsee it. The client who told me he hated walking into the building did me a huge favor that he probably will never know how much it's impacted me. He showed me that everything I had built was sitting on a premise that did not match how human beings really change. And he made it impossible for me to keep selling the old version of the work without feeling like I was lying to people. So I started over, and I didn't do it all at once. It was slow, it was painful, and it took years to do it. I had to walk away from a very profitable model. I had to lose clients who did not want what I was now offering. I had to find a different way to think about what the work really was. The piece that I wrote that is alongside this video on the blog, it lays out the structural argument for what I came to. Short version is this. Leaders do not change by absorbing more content. Leaders change when the environment around them is redesigned intentionally so that being a different kind of leader becomes the natural response to what surrounds them every single day. You do not yell at someone for tripping over a toy in the hallway every single morning. You move the toy. That's as close as I can get to the principle. Move the toy. Redesign the environment so that the new behavior is the path of least resistance, not an act of constant heroic willpower. The work I do now is built around moving the toy. The leader does not leave their business to learn how to be a different leader. The business becomes the place that the change happens, with operational scaffolding holding things up while the leader does the slower, harder work of becoming someone the next stage of the business can actually be built on. The change is real. It also takes longer than anything the industry usually sells because it's happening at the pace of an actual human, not at the pace of a marketing calendar. I also want to be clear about what this rebuild has cost me. It's cost me income. It's cost me the version of my practice that was financially predictable. It's cost me clients who wanted the old product and did not want the new one. I'm still in the middle of finding out whether the new model can sustain a business the way that the old one did. It probably can't, but it can sustain it a new way. What I do know for sure is that I cannot go back. The client who told me he hated walking into the building made it impossible for me to go back. I cannot stand across from a person who is being slowly destroyed by the structure that I'm helping them build and keep pretending that I'm doing them a favor. I would rather build something smaller and slower that actually helps leaders evolve than build something that sells well and produces nothing that lasts. If you've been on the receiving end of any of what I've just described, the retreats that faded, the frameworks that didn't survive contact with an actual, real, living, breathing business, the coaches who produced dependency, maybe the seminars that left you motivated but unchanged, I want you to know two really important things. Here's the first one. The failure has not been yours. You've been buying products that were designed around a broken theory of how leaders change. The fact that those products did not change you is not evidence that you are uncoachable. It's evidence that the products were sold on a premise that just doesn't match reality. Here's the second thing. There is another way to do this work. It's slower. It's harder. It requires you to do something that most leadership development does not require. It requires you to be willing to let your environment change you rather than to keep being the one who has to change yourself through your immense sheer willpower. The work is real. The leaders inside it are real. The road, it's open. The blog has the full argument. This video is just the story of how I got to it. Read the blog. Let's talk.